Hello everybody and welcome to the Weekend Review podcast for the 2023 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Just me this week because there isn't really much to go through and the team are all getting ready for Miami as well. And so this is sort of like the Ted's Notebook sort of thing we did back in Bahrain as well. A chance to talk about the weekend and go through everything, and really, that was rather dull, wasn't it? I've seen many people saying about how boring the Grand Prix was, how exciting it could have been, but in the end, it was Red Bull again at the front. And it's going in a pattern now, isn't it? Max Verstappen winning round 1, Perez winning round 2, Verstappen winning round 3, and Perez winning round 4. And also taking the sprint race as well, doing the double like George Russell did in the last sprint weekend back at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix in Interlagos. So it was a bit of a mixed weekend, you could say, as well. But no harm, no foul in terms of the results. A good weekend, which shows Ferrari does have pace if their strategy can work and the car doesn't eat its own tyres. McLaren back up there as well with a good result for them too. Alpine looking okay, but having a struggle in the main race. And I think that's about it, really. There wasn't really much to talk about, but we'll go through them one by one, team by team like we do. And we'll start off with Red Bull. And they were predictably 1-2 in this race, but it was a different 1-2 we were expecting. In the qualifying and sprint qualifying, they were beaten by Ferrari Charles Leclerc. But in the race of the sprint, it was Perez who got on top, and in the race it was Perez who did exactly the same thing after the pit stop. So Sergio Perez takes his 6th win of his career, his 2nd win of the season as well. Max Verstappen goes in 2nd place as well. After the sprint on Saturday, he was saying about the format, how he didn't like it, and as well he preferred a normal race weekend. Damon Hill said comments about, well, that's being a sore loser and a bad loser. I don't think it's that. I think Max is frustrated because he's never had competition in his own team before. It's always been from another team and another driver. Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, etc. This year he's having competition directly in his team. I think that's what's getting to him as well, because the team aren't yet at the point where they're going to say, okay, Checo, back off, or Max, back off. They're both in it to race and they're both in it for the championship. So both, I think, a little on edge. I don't think Max is enjoying the start to the season he would have wanted, where he would be dominating and continuing on. But Sergio Perez is having a great start to the season as well. 6 points is the difference in the championship now as well, which is mega impressive. And we'll hear from them now talking in the media pen.
It means a lot, you know. It's been a weekend where the pressure has been on, where we had to deliver all the team, and we've done a tremendous job. So I'm really happy with it, really proud of my team, and an excellent result for the championship. I can only think back of the problems we had in Melbourne. I think without those, we should be leading the championship. But for now, I cannot think back. I can only think forwards, and I'm only thinking now on Miami.
A little bit unlucky there, I think. But I think after that, of course, I tried to push. I tried to get back into the DRS, and I was close, but I just couldn't get in. And you know, when you stay a few laps like that, I think tires get a bit too warm. I was really trying to get in, so that doesn't help for the tires. And then after that, I mean, I slowly dropped back a bit, and I was actually not entirely happy with how I had the balance of the car. So I was trying a lot of things on the wheel, on the steering wheel, to try and find a better compromise, to feel a bit more comfortable under braking into the corners. And took a few laps to figure out, with a few wall taps here and there. Luckily no punctures, but I think the last 10 laps were quite good again. I felt a lot more comfortable with the balance of the car. So I think overall the weekend was a good lesson.
On to Ferrari now then as well, and it was a great weekend for Charles Leclerc. Great weekend. Fast in practice. Fastest of all in both qualifying, the normal qualifying and then the sprint qualifying. Started on pole for both races. Sprint race held the race for about 11 laps, then only 6 laps in the Grand Prix, but had the pace and genuinely looked to maybe be a championship contender going into this one. At the moment, Not really sure that's going to change, but still, he ended the race 21.217 seconds off the Red Bulls. That's with Ferrari bringing their upgrades as well. So, not really a good step forward, but positive. They've got one lap. They need to work on the tyres not eating themselves up. They need to work on their strategy department as well, and then I think they've got a very good car to set up. Going forward as well, with who is further in the race, Carlos Sainz finished P5 as well, 45 seconds off, but still 10 points there. So Ferrari having a better weekend than what they did in the first three races. Charles Leclerc, remember, didn't finish race 1 with an engine failure, an energy store failure. Didn't finish race 3 in Australia because he put it in the gravel. Got 6 points in Saudi Arabia. And today got 15 points in the main race and points in the sprint. So he's doubled the effect. So fantastic. Really fantastic job this weekend for Charles Leclerc to get himself into contention of the championship lower down. Carlos Sainz, another nowhere weekend for him. Really needs to start performing, I think, Carlos Sainz. He's the one, I think, the biggest surprise this year who hasn't delivered as well in a car that should be performing for podiums as well. So let's hear what they had to say in the media pen.
Yeah, well, I'm here to win, and obviously second or third is not what I want, but considering the first three races that we've had, scoring 6 points in 3 races, this weekend is better. We didn't have any problems. It was a trouble-free weekend. I think when I look back at the weekend, I look at every sessions, and I think we maximized absolutely everything in every single sessions. So on that, we should be happy. On the other hand, there's still so much work to do. I think Aston Martin is quicker than us and has a better car than us in race pace. Red Bull has a much better car than us in terms of race pace, and that's where we need to do the biggest step forward. In qualifying over one lap with the juice of the new tyres, taking a bit more risk, we managed to do 2 poles, but then over 51 laps race distance, it's impossible.
I had to focus in just controlling Lewis, making it to the finish line in P5 without any mistakes, because today there was just no confidence to push on the car, to get close to the walls when you feel the car very loose around Baku. Is just what it is, no? But we will now focus on what happened. We will finally have a bit of time to settle down and analyse what could have been, and I'm sure in Miami we will be back on form.
On to Aston Martin now. For the first time this season, actually, Fernando Alonso wasn't on the podium. Wasn't on the podium in the sprint, wasn't on the podium in the Grand Prix, and it's a little bit of a worrying sign. During the race as well, the main race, we heard Alonso was telling the team to give Lance his brake balance setup so that they could both run together and progress together. It's a nice change of pace for the two, but Fernando ended the race 1 second behind Charles Leclerc, so he was putting the pressure on in the end. Alonso crossed the line just behind him, so could have got a podium, but unfortunately didn't. So I don't think the pace hasn't disappeared from that Aston Martin. It's still going to be there for podiums at other tracks, but with the long straights here we had in Baku, it really suited the Ferrari car. We've seen that since 2021. It's always been Ferrari circuit. Leclerc had pole in 21, pole in 22. Cars the same this year as 22, had pole in both races, so it's the same thing. We knew Ferrari were going to be quick here. The disappointing is that Alonso lost out on a chance to lead the title, but still he finished in 4th. Lance Stroll, again, nowhere weekend. He was down in 7th position. A little mistake coming out of turn 15 as well, gave a position to Lewis Hamilton. That was sort of the end of his race as well, with Hamilton finishing a position ahead of him. So let's hear what the Aston Martins had to say now in the media pen.
Quite happy with the race. We had the pace yesterday on the sprint race as well, but today, we show even a stronger one, especially with the medium at the beginning. Unfortunately, the safety car came, so we all put the hard tyres, and the hard tyres didn't have any degradation, which is our strongest point at the moment. So I think Ferrari was quite lucky there, because they struggling a lot in the first 16, and then they were okay on the hard tyres. But nevertheless, I think it has been a tricky weekend for Aston. We were underperforming a little bit compared to the first 3 races. DRS problems as well, and even with that we're still 1 second from the podium, 1 second from Charles. And Ferrari, they did have a very good weekend, pole position on both qualifying and things like that, and even with that we're still 1 second from them, so it shows that Aston Martin is never giving up on Sundays.
It's always tough around here, like you saw, a little bit of a misjudgment and you kind of hit the wall and it ends your day pretty quick. So unfortunately, I got away with that one. And yeah, not feeling super comfortable in the car today. I hit the wall there, and then I had a moment out of 16. Lewis got me out of 16, and then I didn't really have great pace throughout the race. So some stuff to look into before Miami, but nevertheless, still I think a positive day for the team. Good points were scored, and considering like it was a challenging weekend for us from the beginning.
Mercedes now then. And good weekend. Small little upgrades. Their big upgrade package is coming in 2 races' time at Imola. But small little changes to the car, and it seemed to be a big improvement. Lewis Hamilton in 6th position. George Russell in 8th. Russell encouraging the wrath of Max Verstappen, however, as well in the sprint qualifying, I believe, where Max called him a D-head as well after some exchanged words. There's been some fiery things on Twitter going recently, but I think it's all fair in love and war in Formula 1. They are friends, they'll get over it. It's the same thing we've seen. But Hamilton in 6th, Russell in 8th. They are desperately needing these upgrades now to contend for podium places as well. Hamilton ended the race 46 seconds behind Perez, and Russell 74 seconds behind Perez as well. Unacceptable in that car that is supposed to be an upgrade on last year's. This is what they had to say in the media pen.
It started off pretty decent, and then I had quite a bit of deg on my medium tyre, and then I had to pit, and then the safety car really kicked me in the teeth. Lost 5 places, and that was difficult to swallow for a second, but then I knew there's nothing I could do about it, so all I could do was just focus on what I could control. So got my head down and just racing hard from the restart, and had a great battle with a bunch of cars, which was really, really positive for me to feel in the car. And yeah, chasing the Ferrari down at the end, just not quite enough to get by him. But if I hadn't had that safety car stuff, maybe we would have had a better battle for the end.
I think it was all right, but following and overtaking seems pretty challenging this year. For everybody, and I think after those first couple of laps, whether it's the race start or the safety car restart, I don't know what it was like behind, but it was sort of line astern from where we were. A little bit disappointed because I had a really good start, made a few positions, really good move around the safety car, and then I went deep into turn 1, almost crashed into Fernando, lost position to Lance, scrappy lap, then lost position as well to Lewis, and ultimately ended up P8 when potentially P5 was on the cards. So that's the way the game works. We need to be quicker and try and come back stronger in Miami.
A team that have actually done better in my eyes, despite only finishing 9th and 11th, but still, considering they started the year with no points in the opening 2 races, McLaren, incredibly good for them as well. Lando Norris finishing in P9, getting 2 points. Piastri finishing in 11th. The team now getting more points here in Baku than they did in Australia is brilliant news. And they had their big upgrade here in Baku, McLaren did. And the car now showing signs it's starting to work and can maybe be a midfield contender as well for positions. So we'll wait to see how that is in Miami. And we'll also wait especially in Emilia-Romagna. Problem is, we're in a run of tracks now that isn't really full speed. We're going to have to wait a long time until June. Of course, another month effectively until we get to Spain, where we're really back on a purpose-built race course that can be flat-out racing. So still a lot of work to be done there at McLaren, but positive signs from them. Great weekend for Lando Norris. He was having battles left, right and centre. Oscar Piastri doing incredibly well. This is what they said in the media pen.
Just tough race, long, stuck behind the guys, with our straight line speed and just with quite a short DRS zone. Not just for us, but for everyone, just very, very difficult to overtake. So not a lot to do. Just sat behind for like almost 40 laps. And then he made a mistake and I managed to capitalise on that. So long race. But we did the best we could. 9th is all we can achieve at the minute,
Yeah, feeling not too bad. I think the adrenaline's doing a very good job. But yeah, shame to be 1 point away or 1 spot away from the points. I think I still learnt a lot about time management and stuff during this race. So no, definitely not a waste. I'm happy to get to the end of the weekend, to be completely honest. But no, still a lot we can learn and a lot to look at after the weekend.
AlphaTauri, a bit of a weekend to forget as well. Yuki Tsunoda managed to get them a point, which is going to be great in the battle for the Constructors' Championship later on in the season, but Nyck de Vries is having one of the worst starts to a rookie season I've ever seen. So many accidents, and a little bit of a non-accident brought out the safety car, the only safety car in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix as well. Touching the wall at turn 5 and 6, breaking the front suspension and having to stop on the track as well for the castle section. It triggered a safety car, and unfortunately he was out of the race with no points in 20th. Many rumours starting to circulate. Okay, that could be him fired maybe mid-season. I think that's harsh. You've got to give him time to get used to a full Formula 1 seat. But I must admit, after 4 races, this is quite worrying stuff from a world champion in Formula E as well. Let's hear what AlphaTauri had to say in the media pen.
I would say whole race it was just behind the cars, and one mistake easily lost the position. So I was really, I used a lot of concentration. But yeah, the car was okay. I think especially straight line speed where we improved a lot. We still suffering a middle sector, but I think we kind of expected, and we kind of already expected those things. So
yeah, fully my mistake. Very silly and very unnecessary, and that's on me. Nothing more to add. Just disappointed with myself.
Williams had a great weekend now. Alexander Albon qualifying extremely well in both the sprint and the main Grand Prix. He finished in 12th. That's good progress for Williams, who had their upgraded car here. Logan Sargent, though, down in 16th place as well. Not too great news. Albon finished 88 seconds off the pace. Sargent 100 seconds. He was the last car as well, Logan Sargent, on the lead lap in 16th. Sargent, again, not taking part in the qualifying session as well for sprint because he damaged the car on Friday with a rear suspension problem as well, so he had to start with the back of the grid in both races. Again, a costly mistake and a costly error cost them a lot of points opportunities. They could have easily had both cars in there inside the top 10 if they could slipstream together and work together like the Astons did earlier on in the weekend. But great job from Albon to finish P12. Sargent must do better. Here's what they said in the media pen.
We had some damage after turn 2, lap 1, which maybe jeopardised a little bit the race, but at the same time, managing brakes, managing battery, had a really good look at the rear wing and diffuser of a McLaren for the whole race. That was it really. I think we this year they obviously shortened that DRS zone, and has made the racing not as fun for everyone at home. And also for us, because obviously we were a bit of a train out there.
Just got a bit unlucky with the safety car at the start, and fell into a lonely, frustrating race. I was stuck behind Zhu for the majority of it, and it just seemed like I couldn't get within a second to really make an overtake. And by the time he pit, it was just too late, and I was too far disconnected from the pack ahead.
Haas now, and Magnussen 13th, Hülkenberg 17th, and Hülkenberg was on an unusual strategy as well, whereas he did not pit for the entirety of the race and came in with 2 laps to go and decided that the hard tyres could do 50 laps out of the 51. He was right, but he was betting on a late safety car. He wasn't the only one to do this. We're going to Esteban Ocon in a minute. He wasn't the only one to do this. He betted on a late safety car or a red flag. It didn't come out, and he lost the time. He went the whole race on hard tyres before switching over to softs as well at the end. He finished 17th after running 7th in the race. That's incredibly hard for him. And bad luck for Kevin Magnussen as well. He was in the wrong places, wrong times, kept getting held up in traffic. Not a great weekend for him. Here's what they both had to say in the media pen.
Was just stuck in traffic the whole race. Had pace for much more, but just couldn't pass. Unfortunately, with the wing we have, it's really fast with no DRS, but with the DRS doesn't really have a big effect. So overtaking is very difficult. Defending is pretty good because without DRS we're pretty fast.
We came into this weekend with something different, what we thought could work really well here on my car. But after yesterday, I think we learned that it didn't work, and putting the car back to how we know it and how we ran into Melbourne and Jeddah, it was back to where it should be. So at least we learned something on the positive side, and on to Miami. I think we should be more competitive there again.
Two teams left then, and we'll start with Alpine. Pierre Gasly having a really bad weekend. He had a problem in the only practice session with the fire from the gearbox. The team managed to get that repaired. New power unit got him out on Friday qualifying, only for him to crash in the opening session, and all that work had to be done again. They decided to start him from the pit lane for both races as well, and in the sprint qualifying as well, had a bad start. Not great at all, not great in the sprint. So Gasly having a very much a down weekend, but did well to fight back for 14th place in the end with a good strategy. Esteban Ocon though, he managed to finish in 15th place, but he too, like Nico Hülkenberg, did a really unusual strategy. He took it to lap 51, the last lap of the race. Then he came into the pit lane and put on a set of soft compound tyres. But the problem was the FIA delegates had opened up the pit lane to all the photographers and the journalists and everything to get in position, and they put the fence up as well at the entrance of the pit lane, which means we had photographers and mechanics, everything rushing around in the fast lane of the pit lane. Everybody knew Ocon had to pit again, nobody seemed to care, and Ocon nearly mowed down a whole load of photographers. Unacceptable stuff, so dangerous. And I actually spoke about it on the Grid Network wrap-up show on Sunday evening. Here it is. Right, at the beginning of each race, so we get an information from the race director in the race director's notes. Inside that race director's notes is a pit lane map specific for TV journalists and photographers. There is a red line across that, here we are, look, where we cannot go across. This is the Parc Ferme image here. So we cannot go across where the pit wall is and where the red line is. Now, if we just take it off for just a second, this is we also get this on this Saturday night. It's just been seen. We get a long document list, and this is the post-race interview and podium ceremony procedure. So basically, we read through it. It usually tells us who's doing the driver interviews. It's useful for the teams to know what to do. It's useful as broadcasters to know who's doing the interview. So I can say, let's go down to Naomi Schiff. She's talking with the top three, or David Coulthard, whatever. And inside this, it tells us where everyone needs to be, how the drivers need to be weighed, what the procedure will be for the trophy. So winning driver, medal for the winning driver, constructors, second and third, then the music, Carmen playing, blah, blah, blah. Inside that document is this. Oh, I'm sorry, Matthew. Where's it gone? I've lost the little image. Here it is. Thank you. This image as well. This is the complete information of what the teams get and all the journalists as well. This is where you are supposed to be standing. Photographers' waiting area. That is where they wait on the final lap of the race. Once the last car has crossed the line, they will then be released into Parc Ferme. You can see a little fence there, the black line with the FIA and F1 logos around it. That gets erected for Parc Ferme, and it shuts off between the FIA garage, number one, and race control, and in front of the podium, and where the top three go. So the FIA scales, where all drivers must go, is located inside the FIA garage. They'll get through left on the fence on the left-hand side. The second and third driver finish behind, and the race winner go through into where the TV people are and everything as well, and the photographers are behind that fence. As you can see, the remaining finishers parking alongside the fast lane as well, just in front of the photographers. That gets gated off. That's how it's supposed to go. What didn't happen today was, because of the confusion as well, in terms of the fact that they released people from the waiting area on the second to last lap, it meant that when Esteban Ocon came into the pit lane, this fence was already erected and the photographers were already in position. Now, you can see where the pit wall is, and the photographers are lined up in the fast lane. So when Ocon came in, the photographers were there because they were allowed to be. So it was an absolutely dangerous situation that should never happen. We could have honestly seen people killed here. Absolutely terrible. We can take that graphic away now as well. Thank you very much, behind the scenes, because we've got the decision on this, and it's just come through on Parc Ferme. The FIA summoned the FIA themselves to the stewards, and they given fact persons blocking the fast lane in the pit lane on the final lap of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix while the pit lane remained open, and that is a breach of Article 12.2.1H and 12.3.1 of the International Sporting Code. The FIA have fined themselves, basically. Here's the decision. The stewards heard from the FIA representatives and determined that the relevant representations took steps to set up the parc fermé area and also permitted media and other personnel to gather in the start of the pit lane and the pit wall during the last lap of the race, while the pit lane was open and before the final pit stop of Esteban Ocon, car 31. We noted that it was not unusual for the representations to be allowed such persons into the pit lane just before the end of the race, in the usual course of preparation, parc fermé and the podium ceremony. However, in this case, there was one driver that had to pit in the last lap, and this created a very dangerous situation for all those that were in the pit lane at the time. We considered that it was fortunate there was no serious consequences on account of what happened today. We stressed that the requirements of ensuring a safe and orderly event are paramount. This was acknowledged by the FIA team. We walked through the relevant procedures and protocol with the FIA regulations, similar to what I've just done for you here on the Grid Network, including FOM, that's the Formula Management Team, and the teams and the FIA. So the media, the FOM media, the teams and the FIA all got briefed on this to ensure that this situation does not occur again. The FIA representations expressed their regret at what happened and assured us that they would do so in time for the next events. Basically, not do it before the end of the race. So effectively, what we got from that is the FIA haven't fined anybody, and they're not going to fine themselves because there's no one to fine. They're not going to reprimand anyone because they can't reprimand themselves because that would be a breach of guidelines of themselves. That would have to be an internal procedure. The stewards can't do it. So basically, what's going to happen now is the old procedure is back in place. No one's allowed in the pit lane until the last cars cross the checkered flag, because we saw drivers coming to the pit lane on the last lap all the time. The F2 race, the sprint, ended inside the pit lane thanks to the crash at turn 1. And Ed points out, saying, to me, this is F1 prioritising sponsors and photographic angles over safety. By the way, Josh, stewards are independent from the FIA and not marking their own homework. That's true, but the FIA have their own set of stewards from this season as well from Formula One, because they've got their own system in Geneva fact-checking everything. So actually this year they have to be integral to the FIA. The driver steward is the only one that isn't permanent. Everyone else is permanent on that team. That's new for this year after the Michael Masi situation a couple of years ago. For Formula E and every other series, that remains the same, where they're not linked to the FIA, they're independent. But it's sort of been revolved around Formula One because Motorsport World does. So that's my rant over, and hopefully that gives you a little bit more information on everything that happened with Esteban Ocon today. Yeah, hopefully that's made it a little bit clearer as well, with all the diagrams as well that we get as journalists. Let's hear then what they both had to say in the media pen, starting with Pierre Gasly 14th and Esteban Ocon in 15th.
It's been very bad and very far from what we've showed so far this year. So we got to understand to make sure it never happens again, because we're clearly not where we want to fight and where we should be fighting. So we got to understand and make sure we don't underperform that way in the future.
Yeah, difficult weekend, I think, for all of us. But we had a great battle the whole race, keeping the cars on fresher tires behind, and we would just try that strategy, try to make it work, and unfortunately nothing happened in the end, so it didn't really work out for us. But the good thing is, we have next week to turn things around and to forget about this week this race quickly, and hopefully we can do so.
One team to go then, and once again it is Alfa Romeo, 18th for Valtteri Bottas. And that's, again, another time he's finished 18th this year. If I take a look at the board here, I've got up in the commentary box, Bottas finished 8th in round 1, 18th in round 2, 11th in Australia, and now he's finished 18th again here in Azerbaijan. This is his third race in a row with a pointless streak, and Bottas is really, really down low. Really is. I mean, it's got to be so frustrating to not even be in the points after last year was such an up season, even with a new team. So, again, not a great weekend. Let's hope he does better in Miami. And it was a DNF, a retire the car in the pit lane for Zhou Guanyu, finishing in 19th position as well. So Alfa Romeo have got a lot to work on in just 7 days before we get to Miami. Let's take a listen to what they said in the media briefing.
Turn 2 had some contact on lap 1. I was on the outside. Somebody, one of the McLarens hit me from the left, and then somebody from behind, and actually had some damage to the diffuser. So it was a pretty long race after that. We obviously tried, because here you never know, but not much happened for us in the end.
Getting a lot alarm on the dash, a lot overheating on the background on the data that engineers had saw on the telemetry. So unfortunately, another retirement here.
Okay, that's us wrapped up then for the notebook style review here of Azerbaijan. We'll be back for Miami in just a few days' time for all the action. Do join us. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. It kicks off Thursday with Megan taking you through the drivers' press conference, and then we'll be ready for Friday, Saturday and Sunday evening action from us all here. Bye-bye for now.